Survival horror. Is that scary? Was that... Oh, okay. What better time to talk about survival horror than during Halloween? A genre so permeated throughout the history of video games that you can't talk about the industry without mentioning influential titles such as Silent Hill or Resident Evil. Yeah, the biggest names in survival horror. But did you know that in 1989, years prior to the release of Resident Evil, was a small survival horror game for the family computer? Based on a movie of the same name, we got Sweet Home. Sweet Home was created by Tokuro Fujiwara, who later went on to create the Resident Evil series. Sweet Home plays very similar to The Legend of Zelda: The Four Swords in that you control multiple characters with different abilities and you switch back and forth between them, putting an emphasis more on puzzle solving and item management. A few years later, released for the DOS operating systems, another survival horror game came out called Alone in the Dark. Considered to be the granddaddy of the genre and the first 3D survival horror game, it's the biggest reason we got games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill. In fact, you can see a lot of its influences in the video games of today. Like tank controls, yay! And for the years to follow, we got an array of awesome survival horror games like Dead Space or Amnesia. And recently I've seen an influx of titles leaning more towards action than survival. Or horror. Looking at you, Metal Gear Survive. But a lot of times this mix of action and horror isn't all that bad. Especially if you're
the House of the Dead.
It's the House of the Dead 2. Let me go get a controller. Wrong controller. Look at this thing! It's one of the strangest controllers I've ever seen. It has one thumbstick and this little window. Actually, Sega developed these cool little memory cards called VMUs, or Visual Memory Units, that display information and such while you're playing the games, and sometimes they let you play minigames while on the go. The Dreamcast was Sega's last video game console, and actually sold quite well. At first. Due to the release of Sony's PS2, the decline in sales for the Dreamcast actually caused Sega to drop the console business and become third-party developers. Poor Sega. Actually, the first wave of Dreamcast had one fatal flaw which may have contributed to the downfall of the system. Because of Sega's decision to use off-shelf components in the Dreamcast to cut costs in manufacturing, this allowed people to discover ways of burning games onto CD-ROMs and play them without any restrictions or lockout. So when I got my Dreamcast secondhand, it actually came with a slew of these. I think this is the game? Okay, just let me set the date. Yep, 1950, midnight. Good, yep, alright, let's start. The game starts off by telling us it's the year 2000 and zombies have attacked some European city. The cast of characters rolls through and
the House of the Dead.
In the Dreamcast version, it gave us two modes. Arcade mode, which lets us play the arcade version, and original mode, which lets us collect power-ups and different items for consecutive plays. In the arcades, the game was an on-rail shooter that used light gun technology. I don't have a light gun for the Dreamcast, so I'm using the controller and it sucks. There is a noticeable delay and lag when trying to move the cursor. As you travel through the different areas of the city, you encounter various zombies, from decaying swamp monsters to lizardmen. You can also help rescue citizens and different NPCs to gain upgrades such as extra continues or a more powerful gun. The different locations that you travel through are actually pretty cool and detailed, and they give the game a more cohesive world. But the one thing that makes the game stand out is the voice acting. Oh my god, the voice acting is horrible. As I played through it, it became more hilariously awful as characters spoke. Just listen.
I don't want to die. My god.
Oh no, someone just died in front of me.
My god.
Aside from the terrible voice acting, the game is actually quite fun. The shooting is responsive, minus moving the crosshairs with the joystick. Shooting with A and reloading with B at the same time essentially gives you infinite ammo. But the best part of the game has to be the bosses. I've actually never passed the game, so let's see if we can take them on, ridding the city of this plague. The first boss we encounter is the duo of Judgment, Zeal and Quarrel. Yeah, Quarrel, as in Quarrel! Walking Dead reference. The way to defeat the duo is by shooting the imp Zeal. Whenever you hit Zeal, Quarrel gets stunned and can't hit you. After half his health is gone, Quarrel dies and it becomes a one-on-one with Zeal. It's not that hard since you can essentially shoot forward and Zeal just runs into your line of fire. After defeating Judgment, we encounter the Hierophant. The Hierophant is a strange bipedal fish monster that likes to jump around and dive bomb you with his spear. He also summons fishies to aid in his assault. The only difficult part is when he jumps up into the air. Since his weakness is shooting his chest, it's kind of hard to aim up and fire since he goes completely off screen, so you have to time it just right as he's coming down to get a hit in. After defeating the Hierophant, we discover that a man named Goldman is responsible for the creation of the zombies and the attack on the city. After heading through the sewers, we fight a 5-headed snake dragon thing called the Tower. You know, these boss names seem really familiar. The Tower is a 2-part battle. The first part has us shooting the heads of the 4 bronze-colored dragons just before they attack. You can tell they're about to attack by this yellow glow that surrounds their mouths. After they're defeated, the blue dragon slithers away into an open area where you can just align the cursor in the middle of the screen and fire infinitely, since he always attacks from that same angle. We then head to the Colosseum to fight off against Strength. Yeah, these names are really familiar. Strength is a chainsaw-wielding, leather-faced wannabe. His weakness is his head, and I'm not gonna lie, this battle was actually pretty tough. In fact, I don't think I've been showing it properly, but the boss battles are all kinda hard with their small target weak spots. After killing it, we drive over to Goldman's headquarters where along the way we refight some of the previous bosses. This is called padding, and the developers knew this was lazy since they only make you rebattle the first 3. We arrive at Goldman's headquarters to be confronted by the Magician. I swear I know what these names are from. Something with fortune telling and cards and witches. The Magician is easily one of the hardest bosses in the game. He shoots multiple orbs of energy at you and sometimes melees you. Also, you have not 1 but 4 weak points to choose from. And that's easier said than done since he constantly teleports all over the arena. Inside Goldman's tower, we encounter new enemies like techno ninjas and robot zombies. Now it's time to confront Goldman. Now this battle is extremely difficult. I can make it up to this part no problem, but it doesn't make it any easier that I'm using a friggin' controller instead of a light gun. Let's do this. Yes! I did it! All alone, by myself, without any help! I did it! With the Emperor defeated, Goldman sees no reason to continue living and nonchalantly leans off the building. Whee! Phew, that was tough. And it was actually pretty hard on my fingers and forearm also. Actually, the only reason I was able to pass the final boss was because through one of my playthroughs, I found an extra power-up that gave me infinite continues. The House of the Dead 2 is a fun time waster, especially if you play 2-player. The voice acting isn't any good, and it's laughable in most parts, but overall, I liked it, and if you're in the mood for a quick on-rail shooter, The House of the Dead 2 may be a fun time for you and your friends. And as for me, I'm gonna go buy a light gun. Hey guys, thanks so much for watching my Halloween special. I hope you thought it was spooktacular. No? Okay. Anyway, go ahead and click that annotation to check out a 2-part video I did on Link's Awakening. I hope you guys have a safe Halloween, and until next time, I'll see you later.